everyone, and welcome to the Lauder Impact Series. My name is Paula Benitez, and I'm a member of the Lauder class of 2026 in the Africa General Track. Our special guest today is Caio Guimarães. Caio graduated from the Lauder French program in 2017 and has since built a remarkable career in consulting. He was recently appointed as the South America lead for BCGX, the tech build and design unit of Boston Consulting Group. Caio has been a pioneer in applying AI and advanced analytics to management consulting in the region. Thank you for joining us today, Caio.
Thank you, Paula. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So, Caio, to start, you graduated from Lauder in 2017 and have since become a leading figure in analytics in Latin America. What would you say was one of the key turning points in your career, and how did you navigate that moment? Was there any way that your MBA experience contributed to it?
Oh, absolutely. So I was sponsored by BCG when I went to Wharton and to Lauder, and trying to figure out how I was going to grow my career over time. And I kept going back to what were my passions, right? I always liked doing analytics. I always liked doing data-driven solutions, deriving insights from data. That was sort of like what kept me very excited about my project. So I knew it was something around data, right? But it was precisely around 2015 when I was joining the MBA class that the whole world was mostly talking about AI and data-driven transformations for companies. And interestingly, that's when BCG also decided to create what today is BCGX. So it was a fortunate coincidence that I learned about BCG's plan to develop this tech business unit while I was at the MBA. As a major coincidence, I was actually at an event by BCG as somebody that was sponsored by the company, trying to help recruit people. But I was actually amazed about this new possibility that was opening up. So it has everything to do with my MBA experience. I also took on a lot of classes at Wharton on data analytics, business analytics. At that time, Wharton was creating a specific major in that space, and I also took up programming lessons. I'm an engineer, so I had a lot of background knowledge on coding and programming, but that's when I really started going deep into Python programming and data science. So it had everything to do with that moment, and having the 2 years to actually rethink how I was going to shape my career going forward was really important to what eventually came about to be the next steps for my career.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So continue a bit on the career aspect. You have been working in this space for almost a decade now. Yeah. What are some of the most important lessons that you learned from applying technology to businesses? And how do you feel that the landscape has evolved, especially now that we're entering the AI era?
Yeah, well, first recognition is that there's a lot of value in using technology and using data to improve business decisions. And this is why this has become a business for us as a consulting firm, right? There's massive impact to be had. Second learning is that, well, it's not really just about technology. I've been doing this for the past 10 years, like you said, and really, if you take any example of a major transformation that we helped construct, most of the effort and the time we spent is actually around people. It's about transforming processes, is about engaging people to change. So there's this element that's not a piece of code that is very important to actually making this impact happen. So that's a key lesson for me. And it's not just about getting the right algorithm or the perfect architecture or the perfect infrastructure going. It has to do about transforming people. So, which is also at the end of the day really exciting for me. It's not just we're building tech for tech, we're building tech for impact.
That's amazing.
And you asked about how is the industry, how is technology evolving? That's it. That's why it keeps it interesting over time, right? It's not something that you learn and you do it over and over. The technology landscape is changing as we speak, right? With the advent of the whole generative AI. So it's exciting. We are constantly learning and evolving how deploying AI and analytics at scale actually happens in the most efficient way.
And I feel your point about the people also connects very well with all of this movement, right? Considering how everything is evolving in a fast pace, keeping people at the center is always very, very inspiring to hear.
Yeah.
Shifting more to the consulting industry in a more broad sense. So the sector is also going through a lot of changes. If we think about
Yeah.
growing client demand for also technology, digital, and AI-driven solutions, this will disrupt what we have as traditional consulting models. So how would you describe the current state of the industry in a global sense, but also focusing in Latin America? And where do you see it going in the next years?
Yeah. So, I mean, it already has disrupted the industry when 10 years ago we decided to create this BCGX business, right? And it was largely based on the fact that our clients see these opportunities as growth avenues and strategic avenues for them. And we as a consulting firm need to be there for that type of demand, and also be on the forefront of what we can do and how we can help our clients. But the matter is that technology is continuing evolving to the point that we just made, right? So a lot of the things that we could automate in the past have changed. We now can automate more things. We can do things more efficiently, more productively. So this has a lot of impact, even on the non-tech consulting projects, right? If you think about it, the way you do strategy now is not the same way you did strategy 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago for that matter, right? You have access to information, you have access to insights. The way consultants are working today, using generative AI has completely changed. And interesting, so just a piece of anecdote here. So we have technology teams within our BCGX team who are engineers and data scientists who are consciously staffed on a project where they cannot code. They should not code. So if they do one line of code, then they haven't met the goal or the purpose of the case, which is basically how do we use prompt engineering and Gen AI to actually develop products? And we're talking about software grade applications using none of code. So that's already a disruption versus what we were doing in the past 10 years, So a lot of these things are changing. It's always scary. I think it's scary for everyone, but it's exciting, right? Because the reality is we're still learning about how it's going to impact how we execute projects, how we help our clients, how our clients are going to be also demanding our work as well, because it may change, because they will also have access to technology that they did not have before. So yeah, I don't have an exact answer on how it's going to change, but for sure it has been disrupting a lot. And this discussion around how our teams work is maybe one of the number one points on our discussion list here as BCG leaders.
That makes 100% sense. And also being able to be one of the leaders within how to shape this environment is also super exciting. So congrats on the work there. So talking a little bit more about leadership. So after your MBA, you have risen to a major leadership role in one of the world's top consulting firms. It is a meteoric trajectory by any standard. So what I would like to learn is how your personal definition of success evolved throughout your career.
That's a great question. Well, as you grow up in, I think, any career, you're always thinking about how to be the most successful in your role. So that prepares you for the next role, right? And I think over time, that's how I thought about success, right? How do I be the best version of what my company is asking me for, so that I can perform at the next level? And it's interesting. It's always a challenge, because you go to the next role, it's different. The setup is different. The dynamics change. What's expected of you changes. So it's always exciting. But it's interesting that as I grow into, now I'm a managing director and partner. I'm a leader of the firm. I'm a leader of people. Almost what I feel is success changes. So obviously the success and the impact of our clients is always there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I do today. But I feel much more fulfilled about things like, growing my teams, having our teams be successful, seeing people that work with me and, under my supervision also growing. So it's fun that I cherish a lot more those types of milestones than personal, promotion goals or things like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for sharing. And how do you feel that your experience at Lauder specifically helped you shape your professional path or how you approach work today?
Yeah, no, Lauder was super important. I mean, when I took on the challenge of becoming BCGX 10 years ago, it was actually a challenge about theoretically leaving the Brazil office of BCG's consulting group, right? Because BCGX was a global unit. So it meant more travel. It meant doing projects with people from other places in the world with different profiles. So it could be scary for a lot of people. For me, it was very normal. I mean, I was used to that. I mean, I very much enjoy learning about new cultures. If travel is involved, then that's even better. So I think, um, under Lauder helped me understand that the world without, the geographical barriers is a much more productive and more successful world than if you just think in small boxes and in the limits of our geographies. So for sure that helped. I mean, I wasn't at all scared about joining BCGX back then, and I know it can be a scary feeling once you're leaving sort of like the office, the Brazilian office world, which I had to do just before I became a project leader.
Yeah, no, that resonates a lot with me.
You know the feeling, right, Paula?
Yes, yes, I do. Well, but to wrap it up this part, I think finally I would like to ask you for what advice would you offer to current students and other young professionals that are looking to, as you, build a career in consulting or even more broadly in technology?
Yeah. So I think so. Sometimes people don't necessarily connect this to the ambition to go into consulting, but I would say find something you're passionate about. I mean, the reason I say this is sometimes you think, oh, you're going to pursue your passion. You think about a specific industry or you think about, a specific role. And a lot of times we associate consulting with more of a generalist management role instead of a specific. But the reality is that the new world of consulting is much more centered around specificity and being deep versus broad. So I would say find something you're passionate about. And specifically in BCG, that may mean, go somewhere else, maybe join BCGX, maybe do something different. So find something you're passionate about. You have tons of opportunities to do that within consulting. Even the entrepreneurial world, right? I was never an entrepreneur myself, so I never opened my business. But in reality, I did, right? Because I helped grow this team. Today, we have around 200 people here in South America. In 2015, it was zero. I was actually one of the first. So you can have very different experiences. You can chart your course even within consulting. So I would say number one suggestion is use the MBA time. Use this moment where you guys have time to reflect and get to meet people to find your passion. And I think consulting is a possibility even within very specific passions.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And just before we wrap up our time together, I would like to move into some quick fire insights, which is the standard here of Lauder Impact. So I'll just ask a few questions and feel free to share your thoughts.
Sure.
The first one is, what's one thing you would tell your younger self?
Don't hesitate as much. So I think that I overthought a lot of the decisions in my life, even to join consulting, to join BCGX at that time, where to go do my MBA. So I was usually an overthinker. And I think the best decisions in my life have been those that I've, made out of impulse and trusting my instincts. So I would say, don't hesitate or don't be scared to not hesitate sometimes.
If you could master one new skill instantly, what would it be?
New skill, multitasking. I'm terrible at that.
Me
My
too.
wife can attest to that. I'm not good at all. This is a superpower she has. I wish I had it too.
What's a book you have read recently that you would recommend?
So, okay, I haven't read so many books lately because of all the change. I've been doing a lot of traveling, which is bad, I know, especially for a Lauder alumni. But I've actually taken up a lot of podcasts and even literature on mental health and health more general. The last book I read was by a guy called David Goggins. He's a former Navy SEAL. And the book is called, I'm trying to remember the exact name here. it was Can't Hurt Me, right? It's by 20. I think he has two books. It was his first book, and this is for his first book is part of like it's kind of like a motivational guide, and he covers his experience as a very tough upbringing in the Navy SEAL. And I like the concept that he tries to instill in this book is about the 40% rule, which is the idea that when you think that you're absolutely exhausted, you're only really 40% exhausted, or
Well,
that you have a lot more to give and that you can keep going. I found that very inspirational to me. And so a lot of times we feel we are tired or we are, at the end of the line, and there's always a good solution. I thought that book really created some good thoughts in my head that I've taken onto my personal life as well over these past years.
thank you so much for sharing. And the final one is just how would you describe Lauder alumni in one word?
Family. It's kind of that situation where you don't see people every day, but when you do see them, it's kind of like, they're family. So I've had several situations where I'm traveling somewhere in the world with BCG, then I have like half an hour somewhere that I can meet somebody from my Lauder class, and it's just natural, So I would say family is the word.
I'm very happy to hear that. I feel it's how we feel about each other here. It's nice to know that this perpetuates throughout the infinity, basically. Well, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for joining us, Caio. This was the Lauder Impact series, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.